Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Ruttamaśloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtike Om Ajnana चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामीनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभो नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे Hare Krishna, reading from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. By His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. We are reading from Canto 3, Chapter 25, The Glories of Devotional Service. So currently we are at text 17. So this is the part of Adhyatmika Yoga Lord is explaining between section 12 to 18. Text 17. Tada Purusha Atmanam Kevalam Prakrite Param Nirantaram Swayam Jyotir Animanam Akhanditam. Translation.
At that time, the soul can see himself to be transcendental to material existence and always self-effulgent, never fragmented, although very minute in sense. Purport. In the state of pure consciousness or Kṛṣṇa consciousness, one can see himself as a minute particle not different from the Supreme Lord. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, the jiva or the individual soul is eternally part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. Just as the sun's rays are minute particles of the brilliant constitution of the sun, so a living entity is a minute particle of the Supreme Spirit. The individual soul and the Supreme Lord are not separated as in material differentiation. The individual soul is a particle from the very beginning. One should not think that because the individual soul is a particle, it is fragmented from the whole spirit. Mayavada philosophy enunciates that the whole spirit exists, but a part of it, which is called the jiva, is entrapped by illusion. This philosophy, however, is unacceptable because spirit cannot be divided like a fragment of matter. That part, the jiva, is eternally apart. As long as the Supreme Spirit exists, his part and parcel also exist. As long as the sun exists, the molecules of the sun's rays also exist. The jiva particle is estimated in the Vedic literature to be 1/10,000 the size of the upper portion of the hair. It is therefore infinitesimal. The Supreme Spirit is infinite, but the living entity or the individual soul is infinitesimal, although it is not different in quality from the Supreme Spirit. Two words in this verse are to be particularly noted. One is nirantaram, which means non-different or of the same quality. The individual soul is also expressed here as animanam. Animanam means the infinitesimal. The Supreme Spirit is all pervading, but the very small spirit is the individual soul. Akhanditam means not exactly fragmented, but constitutionally always infinitesimal. No one can separate the molecular parts of the sunshine from the sun, but at the same time, the molecular part of the sunshine is not as expansive as the sun is itself. Similarly, the living entity, by his constitutional position, is qualitatively the same as the Supreme Spirit, but he is infinitesimal.
Beautiful verse this is. Tada, at that time. At what time? at the time of pure state of consciousness, which is explained previously in the text 16. How one is purified of the ahankara, then kama and lobha, and the concept of I and mine. At that time, in the state of pure consciousness, the soul can see himself to be transcendental to material existence. So he will see Aham Brahmasmi, really transcendental to material existence, always effulgent, Swayam Jyotir, and then Animanam Akhanditam. Animanam is very minute in size, and Akhanditam is never fragmented. So these are the, at that time, one will have these realization. And the purport Srila Prabhupada explains that in the state of pure consciousness means in the state of pure Kṛṣṇa consciousness, one can see himself as minute part and particle, non-different than the Supreme Lord. And that's why Srila Prabhupada very beautifully says, when the sun rises, one will see the sun, one will see oneself, and one will see the relationship of one with the sun. Similarly, when there is a rise in Krishna consciousness, in that pure state, one will see the Supreme Lord, one will see oneself and one's relationship with the Lord and oneself, and that is called as Swarupa Siddhi, right? The living entity is always part and parcel. So Prabhupada says, just like the sun's rays, and it's minute. Just like it is not that at one particular time, the whole Brahman was fragmented. Somebody is sitting with, the chisel and hammer and fragmenting the Brahman. No, is always fragmented, always a part and parcel. And that's why Lord says in Bhagavad Gita, Mamaivamsho jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana. What is the meaning of the word sanatana? Sanatana means there is no beginning, no end. That is called as sanatana. That means that our dharma is called as Sanatana Dharma. Why? Because there is no beginning to Sanatana Dharma. It is not that we started in the 14th century, we started in the 8th century, or we just started some 3,000, 2,500 years ago, or 2,000 years ago. No. Sanatana is always there, right? And therefore you will hear these words, people saying, there is no one founder to Hindu Dharma. Why? Because it is Sanatana. Sanatana means, the literal meaning of the Sanatana means when there is no beginning and no end. Prabhupada explains this in Bhagavad Gita 15.6. Mamaivamsho jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana. So this is Sanatana. That means the living entity is always part and parcel. There is no beginning of that point, that till this point, till yesterday, the living entity was one with the Lord, and then it became the fragmented. Not like that, right? Therefore, the living entity is called as Sanatana. Prabhupada says, Atman cannot be fragmented. And this is the very, very basic knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, which comes very early in Bhagavad Gita. Nainam chindanti shastrani, nainam dahati pavakha, na chaidyam kledyanti apo, na shoshayati marutah. So this living entity is always part and parcel and eternally exists as part and parcel. Mamaivamsho jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana. There are many implications. Sometimes people, they think that, at least in the material life, there is variety. If I become too spiritual, I will become Jyoti. People feel like that, I will become just, I will just merge into Brahman. No, there is nothing called as merging into Brahman. Even those who go for Mayavad Mukti or Kaivalya, they also don't merge in the Brahman. They think they have merged. Avishuddha Buddhaya, but they retain their individuality. Right. Prabhupada says the Jiva particle is estimated to be 1/10,000th part of the tip of the hair. Okay, just look at you can catch one hair and then the tip of the hair, and then divide that balasya shatabhagasya, divide that one tip of the hair into 100 parts, and then further divide that divided 100th into 100th. That means 1/10,000. That is the size of the soul when the soul is there in the material body. Later in the spiritual world, the soul will assume the real size of whatever one's Svarupa is. But in the conditioned state, the soul will exist in the seed form, right? All the senses, the spiritual senses withdrawn inside. And that spark is, which is people called as Chidanandam, Swayam Jyoti, that spark. But the Supreme Lord is infinite. So the soul, Jiva is Anu, the Lord is Vibhu. Further, Prabhupada says another important word is nirantaram. Nirantaram means non-different, and non-different means of the same quality. That means that just like the Supreme Lord is Satchidananda Vigraha, Atma is also Satchidananda Vigraha. But he is Akhanditam. Akhanditam means constantly, constitutionally infinitesimal. Right? And this is how beautifully Bhagavatam describes the Achintya Bheda Abheda Tattva. Qualitatively one with the Supreme Lord, Satchidananda Vigraha, quantitatively and existentially different than the Supreme Lord. Quantitatively he is minute and exists separately now and later. Yeah, the next verse, very beautiful verse, we'll recite this one. Jnana Vairagya Yuktena
Jnana-vairagya-yuktena
Bhakti-yukteena Chatmana
bhakti-yoga
Bhakti-yuktena
chatmana
Paripashchanti Udasinam
paripashyati
Prakritim cha hataujasam.
prakritim
Translation.
Translation: in that position of self-realization, by practice of knowledge and renunciation in devotional service, one sees everything in the right perspective. He becomes indifferent to material existence, and the material influence acts less powerfully upon him. Purport: as the contamination of the germs of a particular disease can influence a weaker person, similarly, the influence of material nature or illusory energy can act on the weaker or conditioned soul, but not on the liberated soul. Self-realization is the position of the liberated state. One understands his constitutional position by knowledge and vairagya, renunciation. Without knowledge, one cannot have realization. The realization that one is the infinitesimal part and parcel of the Supreme Spirit makes him unattached to material conditioned life. That is the beginning of devotional service. Unless one is liberated from material contamination, one cannot engage himself in the devotional service of the Lord. In this verse, it is therefore stated, Jnana Vairagya Yuktena. When one is in full knowledge of one's constitutional position and is in the renounced order of life, detached from material attraction, then by pure devotional service, Bhakti Yuktena, he can engage himself as a loving servant of the Lord. Paripashyati means that he can see everything in its right perspective. Then the influence of material nature becomes almost nil. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma. When one is self-realized, he becomes happy and free from the influence of material nature, and at that time he is free from lamentation and hankering. The Lord states that position as Madhabhaktim Labhate Param, the real state of beginning devotional service. Similarly, it is confirmed in the Narada Pancharatna that when the senses are purified, they can then be engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. One who is attached to material contamination cannot be a devotee. Hare Krishna.
Jnana Vairagya Yuktena. Empowered by Jnana and Vairagya, knowledge and renunciation. Bhakti Yuktena Chatmana. Equipped with devotional service. Paripaschanti Udasinam. One will able to see the things as they are. Shastra Chakshu. Udasinam. Prakritim cha hataujasam. And the material nature, as in the effect, will also act less powerfully upon such a personality. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains, the translation is, in that position of self-realization, what position? The previous shloka, text 17, right? The soul is seeing oneself as the transcendental to material existence, always self-effulgent, animanam, akhanditam, these four things. In that position of self-realization, by the practice of knowledge and renunciation in devotional service, jnana vairagya yuktena bhakti yuktena, three things will happen. What are the three things? Paripaschanti, one sees everything in the right perspective. Right. So this is very, very important. Seeing the things in the right perspective. Paripaschanti. Udasinam becomes indifferent to material existence. So he also becomes indifferent to material existence. This is matra parishastu kaunteya. Shitoshna sukha dukkada. He is able to tolerate more. That's why you say devotee. Somebody has become devotee. They'll say, Prabhuji, you have changed. Mataji, you have changed a lot. What is that changed a lot? Basically, what they want to say is you have become less reactive, or your reactions are measured because you are becoming indifferent to material existence. Again, we have countless time we have discussed this. Indifferent to material existence doesn't mean becoming udasin Baba, right? No, one has to act as per one's, the age, time, place, circumstance, psychophysical nature, the Bhagavad Gita paradigm. But the response and the response time will be different. And what is the third thing? Prakritim cha hataujasam. The third effect is material influence will act less powerfully upon him. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains, just like somebody who is a weaker person, who's what do you call it? Roga pratikara shakti.
Immunity.
Yeah, right, immunity. Somebody's innate immunity is very weak. Naturally, he will be prone to multiple diseases. Right. Similarly, a living entity who is more steeped inside, the modes of material nature, he will be very easy victim to mode of passion, ignorance, and the material reactions. But slowly, by the practice of devotional service, one will rise oneself from the platform of Rajo and Tamoguna to the platform of Sattva Guna. And what is the one qualification of Sattva Guna? Sattva Guna means one will be able to give proper reaction to what is happening in one's life. Right. There is a beautiful theory which is called as logotherapy. Okay. Viktor Frankl, he talks about between the stimulus and response, there is a time where we choose our response. And this is a very, very critical time. And more we are in the mode of goodness, more we can actually choose our response to what is happening to us. What is happening to us is, by and large, we have no control over it. By and large, it is already decided, by and large. By and large, it is decided by our kundali, the previous karma, and this and that, and everything else. But although what is happening to us is decided, what is response to what is happening to us is in our control. Right? And by performing devotional service, when we rise to bhakti yoga, then we will be able to see things as they are, paripaschanti, and then the material nature will act less powerfully on such a personality, such a devotee, and his response also will be what Shastras are supposed to give the response. Bhagavad Gita says, Matra sparshastu kaunteya. These things are happening. So you must have this experience that you have become less reactive after becoming devotee of the Lord. You're not always, in this roller coaster ride of emotions. Isne ye bola Prabhuji, usne ye bola Mataji, ye wo, and one is. So this is the meaning of prakritim cha hataujasam. It is very important. Who is disturbing us? What kind of discussion, what kind of conversation, what kind of talk, we are becoming extremely agitated and disturbed. That shows our depth in devotional service. Right. Prabhupada says such a personality is called as Brahmabhuta. Prabhupada quotes this shloka. Brahmabhuta prasannatma na shochati na kangshati. Sama sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktim labhate param. At that stage, what happens is prakritim chahatavjasam means na shochati na kangshati. Na shochati, he will have very less lamentation or no lamentation. Na kangshati, he will not have desires for sense gratification. Okay, all his desires will be to engage oneself in the dharmic activities. They may be varnashram activities, just like Arjuna fighting the deadly war of Kurukshetra, but he is fighting for Kṛṣṇa. Right? And that time one will receive mad bhaktim. Here the bhakti is pure devotional service. What we are doing is also devotional service, and what we will receive is also devotional service, but our devotional service will become more and more purified. Prabhupada quotes Narada Pancharatra in the purport that when the senses are thus purified, sarvapadi vinirmuktam tat paratvena nirmalam. And this is how one can, Prabhupada says, one who is attached to the material contamination can never be a devotee. Right? So we have to see what is our material contamination we are attached to. Right? But we have to slowly remove that attachment systematically, realizing that, yeah, it is attachment, it is coming in the way. And slowly one can remove those material attachments. Like, people read excessive newspaper, watching television, going to cinemas, the activities which are contrary to devotional service. Slowly one should dovetail them towards the semi spiritual kind of a topics. Like if one is watching too much of a cinema, then at least you move to only patriotic films and the films which are like those kind of films, which are like on Sanskriti and this the one which is going on is very nice film, the history of Itihasa. Okay. And then slowly one can even transcend that stage also. But one has to be progressively, transferring oneself towards the mode of goodness and acting in the mode of goodness. Now we come to text 19. So text 19 to 27, it is pure nectar where Kapila Muni is going to explain supremacy of bhakti, supremacy of devotional service. Text 19 will recite this verse. न युज्यमानया भक्त्या
न युज्यमानया
युज्यमानया
भक्त्या
भक्त्या
भगवती अखिलात्मनि
भगवती
भगवती
अखिलात्मनि
अखिलात्मनि
सदृशोऽस्ति शिवपन्था
सदृशोऽस्ति
दृशोऽस्ति
शिवपन्थः
शिवपन्थः
योगिनां ब्रह्मसिद्धये.
योगिनां
योगिनां
सिद्धये.
ब्रह्मसिद्धये.
Translation.
Perfection in self-realization cannot be attained by any kind of yogi unless he engages in devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for that is the only auspicious path. Purport. That knowledge and renunciation are never perfect unless joined by devotional service is explicitly explained here. Na yujyamanya means without being doubted. When there is devotional service, then the question is where to offer that service. Devotional service is to be offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the super soul of everything, for that is the only reliable path of self-realization or Brahman realization. The word Brahma Siddhaya means to understand oneself to be different from matter, to understand oneself to be Brahman. The Vedic words are Aham Brahmasmi. Brahma Siddhi means that one should know that he is not matter. He is pure soul. There are different kinds of yogis, but every yogi is supposed to engage in self-realization or Brahman realization. It is clearly stated here that unless one is fully engaged in the devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one cannot have easy approach to the path of Brahma Siddhi. In the beginning of the second chapter of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, it is stated that when one engages himself in the devotional service of Vasudeva, spiritual knowledge and renunciation of the material world automatically become manifest. Thus, a devotee does not have to try separately for renunciation or knowledge. Devotional service itself is so powerful that by one's service attitude, everything is revealed. It is stated here, Shiva Pantha. This is the only auspicious path for self-realization. The path of devotional service is the most confidential means for attaining Brahman realization. That perfection in Brahman realization is attained through the auspicious path of devotional service indicates that the so-called Brahman realization or realization of the Brahmajyoti effulgence is not Brahma Siddhi. Beyond that Brahmajyoti, there is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the Upanishads, a devotee prays to the Lord to kindly put aside the effulgence, Brahmajyoti, so that the devotee may see within the Brahmajyoti the actual eternal form of the Lord. Unless one attains realization of the transcendental form of the Lord, there is no question of bhakti. Bhakti necessitates the existence of the recipient of devotional service and a devotee who renders devotional service. Brahma Siddhi through devotional service is realization of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The understanding of the effulgent rays of the body of the Supreme Godhead is not the perfect stage of Brahma Siddhi or Brahman realization, nor is the realization of the Paramatma feature of the Supreme Person perfect. For Bhagavatam, for Bhagwan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is Akhilatma. He is the Super Soul. One who realizes the Supreme Personality realizes the other features, namely the Paramatma feature and the Brahman feature, and that total realization is Brahma Siddhi.
So, very beautiful verse. Now, Kapila Muni says, Na yujyamanaya bhaktya bhagavati akhilatmani sadrushosti shiva pantha yoginam brahma siddhaye. Perfection in self-realization cannot be attained by any kind of yogi unless he engages in devotional service to the Supreme Lord. For that is the only auspicious path, Shiva Pantha. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that the knowledge and renunciation are never perfect unless they are joined with devotional service, period. This is very important. There are multiple paths to attain the Supreme. There is this yoga, that yoga, there is a Raja Yoga, there is Ashtanga Yoga, there is Dhyana Yoga. But unless one performs a devotional service, the yoga will never be complete. Na yujyamanaya. Without being dovetailed in devotional service, there is no question of attainment of Supreme Brahma Siddhaya. So attainment of Supreme means there has to be devotional service. So Brahma Siddhaya, Prabhupada is later going to explain, Brahma Siddhaya can be, depends on what you call as Brahma. Right. So Brahma, one can call the only Brahma Jyoti as Brahma. Somebody may call Paramatma as Brahma. Or one may go to the highest realization of the Brahman, and that is the Bhagavan realization of the Brahma. So Brahma Siddhi means there are three types of Brahma Siddhi. And there are three types of Brahma. That is Vadanti Tat Tattva Vidas, Tattvam Yajnanamadvayam, Brahmeti Paramatmeti, Bhagavan iti Shabdate. Right. Further, Prabhupada says, the living entity is, so beginning of this is the right understanding of who am I. So the living entity is not matter. He is the spirit soul, Aham Brahmasmi. He is part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. He is pure soul. And thus there are different kinds of yogis engaged in the different path. And thus they will be striving for renunciation and jnana and vairagya. But for a devotee, that is not a necessity. Prabhupada says, the process of devotional service is so powerful that simply by engaging in devotional service, one will have perfect knowledge, jnana, and perfect vairagya, detachment. Devotee does not have to separately try for renunciation or knowledge. That will come automatically, which is confirmed in Bhagavatam. Vasudeve Bhagavati bhakti-yoga prayojitaha janayati ashu vairagyam jnanam chayat ahetukam. Very quickly, janayati, it will produce ashu, jnanam, and vairagya. A 6-month-old devotee in ISKCON, and he will be having the perfect understanding of philosophy. Albeit he may not be able to practice that understanding. We will progressively practice that. But he knows, Bhagavad Gita means 700 shlokas, Bhagavatam means 18,000 shlokas, Bhagavad Gita means 5 subject matter, Bhagavatam means 10 subject matter. How, and then these are the 5 subject matters of Bhagavad Gita, these are the 10 subject matter of Bhagavatam. Who is Brahman, what is Paramatma, what is Bhagavan, what is spirit, what is matter. Clear understanding. Right. Janayati ashu vairagyam jnanam chayat ahetukam. This is very important. And therefore, this path, this is Pantha, is called as Shiva Pantha. Shiva Pantha means only auspicious path. Only auspicious path is Bhagavad Bhakti. The another meaning of Shiva Pantha is the Pantha, the path which is followed by Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva follows which path? Swayambhu Narada Shambhu. He is also devotee of the Lord. He also follows the path of devotional service. Therefore, it is called as Shiva Pantha. Prabhupada says there is Brahman realization, and within Brahman realization also, if one can go beyond Brahman realization, one will come to Paramatma and Bhagavan realization. And somewhere, even the yogi realizes this, and therefore he is praying to the Supreme Lord. Hiranmayena patrena, satyasyapi hitam shrunu. That, my dear Lord, your face is covered with dazzling effulgence, gold-like effulgence. Please remove your effulgence so that I can take darshan of your lotus face. And this is the prayer from Ishopanishad. So Prabhupada further explains the Brahma Siddhi. And Brahma Siddhi, the ultimate Brahma Siddhi is, first Brahma Siddhi is Brahman, then Brahma Siddhi is going up to Akhilatma, that is Super Soul. And the final Brahma Siddhi is having darshan of the Supreme Lord, being engaged in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavan. So this is what is called as Brahma Siddhi. And Bhagavad Bhakti is the only path, no other yoga, without help of devotional service, without help of bhakti, na yujyamanaya bhaktya, one can actually attain Brahma Siddhi. So very beautiful words. So we will conclude here and continue tomorrow. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Thank you, Prabhupada. Thank you, everyone. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhupada.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Prabhupada.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you, everyone. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you, everyone. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.